started. Thank you, Sam. Welcome to the Merit Education Rounds, February rounds. I am Dr. Elif Bilgic, and I'm an education scientist in the Department of Pediatrics and the Merit Center, or the McMaster Health Education Research, Innovation, and Theory Center. Now, Merit Center is an education services center in the Faculty of Health Sciences dedicated to advanced health professions education scholarship, with a vision to grow a community of scientists and clinicians to advance health professions education through research and applied science. Now, although today's education round is virtual, many of us in this event are connected by the land on which we work. So I take this time to recognize that McMaster is on the traditional territory shared between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Nations, which was acknowledged in the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt. That wampum uses the symbolism of a dish to represent the territory and one spoon to represent that the people are to share the resources of the land and only take what they need. Before leaving the stage to our esteemed guest today, I will provide a brief introduction. The title of today's education round is Exploring Faculty Development, Formats, Frameworks, and the Future. And we have Dr. Catherine Tong as our speaker. Dr. Tong is a family physician practicing in the Kitchener-Waterloo and associate professor in the Department of Family Medicine at McMaster. She is program director of the Royal College Clinician Educator Area of Focus Competence Diploma program and the faculty development director for the Department of Family Medicine. Dr. Tong's education research focuses on challenging topics in faculty development, including program evaluation, equity and inclusion, and engaging faculty in the disruptive medical education environment. With her expertise in mind, the rounds today will focus on describing common faculty development formats and topics, in addition to a review of emerging topics and direction of future research studies and commonly used frameworks within the field. During the rounds, feel free to use the chat for comments and questions, as I will ask those during the Q&A period. Also, during the Q&A, you can ask questions by using the hand-raising function. So without further ado, Dr. Tong, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Elif, for that generous introduction. I'm so happy to be here and doing this merit round today. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm excited to talk about my favorite topic in education, which is faculty development. I created this presentation for the Merit community. As Elif has mentioned, Merit is a community of practice, actually something that I'm going to be talking more about later in this presentation. A community of practice, also known as COP, is one of the most important concepts in faculty development. As a great example of a COP, Merit is a network where people choose to come together in order to be able to solve problems together. So we welcome everyone who's invested in the space of health professions education at McMaster University to Merit. I'm grateful that this group exists at McMaster. It's not something that's to be taken for granted. Merit at a high level monitors and guides education scholarship development for health sciences at this institution. If you're a teaching faculty member, as I know many of you are, and a program lead, a clinician, an instructor, a research staff member, or a learner, I know we do have some graduate students who might have registered for this event, or if you identify as multiple of those things at the same time, I hope you find value in this conversation. I want to thank you for being here. Your presence already adds to this presentation and add to the value of our community. I wanted to acknowledge the support from Merit, the Department of Family Medicine and Postgraduate Education, for their support to me in my education leadership role, as well as the role of clinician scientist. So we're going to define faculty development. I might just shorten it at times to say FD instead of FacDev, just because it gets to be pretty hard after a while. We want to outline the theories related to FD programming and scholarship, and we want to reflect on FD and FD scholarship opportunities. Maybe we can reflect together in your own teaching context what that might look like. And I'm going to break down the presentation into 5 parts, and I'll refer back to this from time to time so that we're all oriented and going on the tour together. So first of all, definitions. So the medical school's faculty is its most important asset, according to Whitcomb in 2020, in 2003. Those who cannot teach, and that's a quote that I hear a lot in the teaching education world. I think what this might be saying that is more accurate is that sometimes it's really rare to find someone who can both practice a profession and also teach the profession really well at the same time. So that's a case for faculty development, actually. And the last one is something that I quote nobody in particular. It's just something people say at the faculty development conferences. If you know us, you will know that we don't take ourselves very seriously because we fail a lot, and we just get used to working through failure. Just showing here the CACM's accreditation standard. So under 4.5, the standard is that a medical school or university must provide opportunities for professional development in areas needed to fulfill their educational roles in the medical program and to enhance faculty skills and leadership abilities. So this is, in a similar language in any number of accreditation criteria. They don't generally dictate in terms of the format and, to what degree and detail that has to be done. It just needs to be supported and done and demonstrated. So institutions then have the freedom to organize their own resources and their own administrative structure. So at McMaster University, there is a CPD office under the Faculty of Health Sciences that is interprofessional, that's led by Dr. Ruth Chen, who contributed to this slide deck and mentors me on various things. I myself have previously led faculty development portfolio at the Waterloo Regional Campus, where faculty members are working in different clinical scopes in the School of Medicine campus there, and we address their needs specific to that context. I currently work in Department of Family Medicine faculty development role, where the faculty members are very distributed across now 8 postgraduate education sites, and some of which are very rural. So we support them. So if you're a faculty member that works outside of Hamilton in one of these sites, you may be supported by the Department of Family Medicine and by a regional campus structure. And also you're supported by the CPD office under the FHS. So you might be getting a lot of emails about offerings of all kinds. And so, of course, there are some departments that have similar structures and others are different. Other offices at FHS also sometimes do faculty development. For example, Faculty Affairs Office sometimes will deliver some leadership workshop opportunities, and then the Office of Equity and Inclusion under FHS also would deliver some faculty development activities related to equity and inclusion. So there are all kinds of crossovers administratively. The definition I'll share with you first is that faculty development, also sometimes called teacher development or staff development, is defined broadly as activities that renew and assist faculty members in their academic roles. So assist means skill development, and we'll get into that in a minute. Renew is an interesting verb. It doesn't, I don't think, mean renewal of faculty appointment literally. I think renew means a bit more experiential. It's a state of being a faculty member, a state of being part of a community, of being connected into a community like this. I think it's specifically important for those who may not be physically in the community, like Hamilton Health Sciences or David Braley, where the academic hubs are so present, and that experience is important also for people who work outside of those environments as well. In the same paper by Centra, they cite Burkest and Phillips that describe faculty development materials into 3 different content buckets, and I'll go through those with you right now. The first one is instructional development. So we're talking about everyday tasks of a frontline teacher in terms of teaching skills, maybe in the classroom, maybe in a seminar, or maybe in a clinical preceptor environment. You need to write evaluation of the learner. You need to mark their assignments. For education lead, we may be talking about curricular design, curricular evaluation, accreditation related things. And so that is a bulk of faculty development content. An example of this more contemporarily is, for example, the CPD office had put on the day, in fact, that in 2024 and 2025, 2 years in a row, they had chosen to dissect the impact and application of AI in education. So that was very timely, 2 years in a row in that topic, and we walked away with some really interesting and applicable skills in using AI. There's also the more traditionally at McMaster, we have Mac Essentials tutorial training, where the tutors are shown how a tutorial works, how to do a PBL facilitation, and that's still a program that's ongoing right now. In addition, I would include research skills under this bucket as well. More recently, this is being included. So at McMaster, we also have online open access modules that aim at developing specific research skills. For example, qualitative health research module that is available through the CPD office. The next bucket is personal development. This relates to career growth, personal wellness, professional identity formation. This will all fall under that. So an example of that is, for example, at the coming family medicine faculty retreat this spring, we're going to be hosting a career development panel to talk about different stage of career and their specific needs and concerns. So this type of activities could be skill-based, but it could also be very experiential and reflective. To me, this is less about, at the end of the session, you should be able to, and then you list all the verbs. This would be more about, to me, we don't write this in our accreditation applications, but it really is about during the session. We're trying to bring the experience to our faculty members. We're trying to create space to reflect, to make connections between ideas or people, to understand, to take stock. So in a guided way, in a group setting, this could take a long time. This is a longer session where people need to be given the opportunity to come into a space and into the mindset where they could actually do the work together. There's the opportunity to let you know that the 19th Annual Day in Faculty Development, which is hosted by the CPD office on June 17th this year. I just looked at their site, which I'll share later. Dr. Zach Mercurial is doing a session that's called The Power of Mattering. And if I looked at their bio, and it looks like it's about skill development related to how to access the experience of feeling appreciation and value from a practitioner's point of view in the current healthcare environment. So I never thought of that being a skill, and I want to go to that just to see how it can be taught as a skill, and something that perhaps you can teach others as a skill, which is really timely if it actually works. So that's an example of that. There's also asynchronous, self-directed equity and inclusivity training materials on CPD website as well that you could do as a self-directed module. That's the same idea. So there's also the last bucket, which is the organizational development. We're talking about leadership programs, change management, conflict management, communications, equity and inclusion again. So these are activities that perhaps staff and faculty members can come together to do. They can co-learn. So these are objectives where we're looking at how a team can work a little bit better together. Equity inclusivity can also fit under this bucket as well. I was involved in creating Brave Spaces, which is a faculty development workshop series where teams work together to counter microaggressions. At McMaster University, there are, I can think of 2 ongoing leadership programs, Bridging Leaders Program, as well as Academic Leadership Program, that are longitudinal leadership development programs that are well reviewed. So one thing that commonly confuses faculty members is distinction. What is faculty development versus what is continuing professional development versus what is continuing clinical education? So in medicine, is continuing medical education. So what that is specifically to your clinical work, how to do a procedure, how to, for example, how to do bedside ultrasound in the emergency department, or how to improve your airway skills. Whereas faculty development is by nature a bit more universal and agnostic in terms of clinical scope. So it's applicable across different environments in a lot of ways. And by doing that, inadvertently, to me, it breaks down barriers between clinical scopes and professions. So whereas continuing clinical education sometimes unintentionally reinforces silos, faculty development actually subverts it. For example, giving and receiving feedback is bread and butter in faculty development. Building a feedback culture is important for learner and patient safety across all different spaces and environments. So in that way, to me, faculty development can be inherently disruptive. In medicine in particular, sometimes we're trained very much to respect, right, the bounds of each specific clinical scope as we super subspecialize, and mostly maybe for regulatory reasons to start with, but this unintentionally sometimes feels like it feeds into the division and animosity sometimes between specialties. Our learners are oftentimes pressured into choosing a clinical scope, quite early in their career. So, if you're someone that feels that you're kind of boxed into a kind of clinical work and you want to step outside of that and be creative and work with people that you normally wouldn't collaborate with in your clinical environment, faculty development education in general is a really good way to go. So another definition I would offer you that complements the other one is from Dr. Steiner. Faculty development is contemporarily defined as all activities health professionals pursue to improve their knowledge, skills, behaviors as teachers and educators, leaders and managers, and researchers and scholars in both individual and group settings. So I really appreciate inclusion of researchers and scholarly skills into this definition. And I love how she specifically spelled out the individual and group setting as options. So this is the 2x2 matrix related to context of learning versus approach. So we have individual informal, group informal, individual formal, and group formal. And I think I've touched on many of these kind of examples of offerings that we do here at McMaster University. So as you know, many of us learn just by doing. Some of us learn by watching other people as role models. So that would be an individual informal activity. If you do an online module that's self-guided, that's designed to be done without moderation, then you're doing a formal individual FacDev. If you're going to an event with a number of other people like this, then this will be formal FacDev that is group-based. Or you can join a community of practice where there is no formal sponsorship or structure, and you could learn with others by casually consulting each other or practice group mentorship or coaching. And so the most visible kind of activity is actually workshops and seminars, and they're the most commonly described in the literature, which we'll get into as well. And lastly, mentorship kind of fits awkwardly, like it doesn't specifically belong to any one square. Perhaps it's more individualized than group, but mentorship fits in the middle because it can interact with all of these contexts, and they can be formal, it can be casual, and they can unify the various learning contexts and help the faculty members synthesize their experience. So I think that's the reason why it sits there where it is. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's in the literature, even though I know that, it does not capture a lot of what actually goes on that would be falling under the definition of FDE. But what it is, we can look at. So this is a paper that is a scoping review of all English speaking articles that was published related to health professions education and faculty development in 2015 to 2023. And this was from 2025. So the most common topics, as you can see, are teaching, learning, assessment, which is learner-facing direct teaching type of tasks. And then we have mentorship, well-being, and career development, which is personal development. And then we have research and scholarship. And then we have leadership development. And then we have curriculum development renewal, probably for committee members and program leads. And lastly, DEI as well. So some of these activities, if you break them down, they're targeting specific group of faculty members in the same team, same department, same place, and others are a bit more generalized. Some are specific targeting a location, like a rural teaching side, distributive teaching side versus not. And some of them are targeting a specific group of people. For example, underrepresented groups in faculty members, for example, women, for example, new faculty onboarding kind of activities. So an example of a specific participant group kind of faculty development activity, CPD office is running a women's symposium this year. So this is an annual event on March 5th in the afternoon. The topic this year is innovation and leadership in women's health. So how these are delivered is not exactly surprising. You can see very, very commonly these are workshops. There would also be formal training in the format of longitudinal programs or courses, and mentorship is very frequently described as well. Before we leave this part, I just wanted to say one thing as a faculty developer. So practically, FD resourcing is fairly dependent and vulnerable to faculty engagement. So the team members, we have to continuously create programming to optimize engagement, right? So engagement is almost always voluntary in FD culture, right? So we do get immediate feedback right away when we see people don't come to the event. So that's always something that we're sensitized to. University funding is, oftentimes at risk. In the last few years, it's been difficult. In fact, faculty development programs are oftentimes the victim of some pretty significant cuts in the last little while. So I wanted to use this opportunity to say that engagement in FD is a perennial problem. Everywhere you go, there's issues with that. We do have our faculty members who absolutely love learning. They're curious. They're curious about a topic. They're wanting to connect with their colleagues outside of the clinical environment. They want to tap into that network, and they're truly interested in the topic that's being discussed. Nonetheless, participation is always voluntary, and clinician teachers are oftentimes under significant productivity pressures at the end of the day, and sometimes it's literally at the end of the day or squeezed into lunch hour, which is not always realistic. Sometimes it feels like it's hard to attend a learning event. It feels like a luxury. It feels like something as a participant or faculty member, you have, other things to do and just can't afford the time and the energy to do that. So of course, it's the task and the challenge of FD people, us, to be facile, right, in our design and topic selection, or maintain a level of updatedness, competitiveness in trying to get your attention, trying to invest so that you can invest the time and energy so that it's worth it for you to attend. We do have to take responsibility, to make sure that the needs assessment is accurate and the scheduling is clever and sensible. However, I would also ask that if you ever feel that an event is valuable and it's hitting the correct objectives and targeting the right way and promoting the right way, please, if it's ever possible, when you have a choice to go or not go to attend, it means a whole lot to your FD people. Think of them as your local business that you need to support. Because it's that important. The other thing I wanted to say is that for those of you who are thinking about what it takes to get into doing FD work, so there's such a thing as a faculty development competencies, right? So similar to other program leads, it's really important that the FD person needs to be inspiring. They need to be efficient leaders. They need to be smart in terms of finances. They need to be good at teaching, facilitation. They need to have good social skills, but they also need two additional things that I think are important, which is creativity and an adaptive expertise. So creativity speaks to the lack of routine. Everything is project-based. A lot of things are project-based. You do one and then you do the next thing, and there may not be any pattern or routine to it. Adaptive expertise, on the other hand, relates to being, responsive, not just to things that happen in the education environment, but also to societal and cultural changes as well, and be able to hear changes, see changes, and respond to it in a way that is maybe a little bit ahead of your colleagues, in that sense, to be able to be prepared for changes that may come to the educational healthcare environment. So, and also we're faced with developing programs for multiple generations of teachers. We have to think about the needs that are different for multiple segments of our society, and be able to speak to everybody at the same time. So these are the important things. If that kind of challenge excites you, then you should think about doing this work. So we're going to talk a little bit about theories of FactDev. So this is a pretty long list with lots of words, but what I'm going to do is to break them down into 3 different categories and just kind of give some examples to make sure this makes sense to folks. The first thing is learning theory. So this is pretty obvious. I think all of us in education would reach for a few of these things that if you're comfortable with, and you want to, or it works for your particular context, you would just use the learning theories in your program design, how you design your activities, how you design your evaluations. But I'm naming a few and trying to connect these few with the faculty development context in specific. So for example, adult learning theory is, of course, disputed. So it's theoretically, there is a type of learner who is motivated to learn based on the problem that they encounter, which makes sense to me. If such a archetype type of learner actually exists, then FD is definitely the perfect context for it. Faculty members are definitely adults. They're adults of various ages. They have to be respected. We have to make sure that we give the participants the space and the tools to solve their own problems and give them agency so that they can do so. More than undergrad and postgrad learners, the faculty members are a bit more, they need to have more agency in dealing with their own learning based off of their own particular problem. If we create materials that is not appropriate for their context, they will definitely not attend or engage at all. Experiential learning theory talks about the common experience where faculty members are directing their own learning in an informal way. So we don't usually see faculty members crack open a textbook to read about education. What we do see is they'll run into a problem with a learner or a course or an experience that cause some kind of disorienting dilemma maybe, and then they go into a COBE's experiential cycle where they think about it, they talk to someone about it, they get some ideas out of it, maybe they read about it or attend a session about it, and then they try to do something differently, they experiment, and then maybe they feed that experience forward to their next challenging encounter. Self-determination theory is about motivation. This is relevant because, again, first of all, attending FactDev is voluntary, and secondly, a lot of people teach voluntarily, so they're not obligated to. So especially the clinicians who are teaching kind of as a secondary role. So part of our mission as FactDev teams is to retain our capacity, keep our faculty motivated. We don't have a lot of budget and we don't have any control over how faculty members are compensated. So we just end up using psychology a lot of times. We want to make sure that people experience autonomy, competence, and relatedness based off of self-determination theory. We want to make sure that what we're teaching is accessible to them, that they are going to experience competence in the event, that they're going to walk away feeling more confident, and that they feel that they have control over situations. So that's something that we do use. Community of practice is super important. So Merit being a good example of that. COP is a group of people who share a culture. They interact with each other informally to solve problems, sometimes formally, but oftentimes informally. And the problems are broadly applicable to all members of a group, and the members are brought into it by interest. Some of you are Merit members by interest, and some of you are formally invited into the group. Learning happens through interactions and social activities. Identity formation happens through being in the group and having events together and having connections. In my own experience, my engagement with Merit definitely supported my own professional identity formation as an education researcher. And lastly, in this list is transformative learning theory, which is commonly applied to faculty development. In my mind, this is specifically useful for personal development type of activities. So we can understand FD as a process of transformation that happens internally to individuals and groups. So Maybe an experience, a transformation during a session, or a shift in perspective, or a different way to see a problem, or make some new connections between different ideas, and gain a new understanding of your work. I think that's what that the power of mattering probably is going to be like. Um, the next bucket of theories that are really useful is curricular design and evaluation frameworks. So those of you who are program leads are probably very familiar with some of these. So for example, current 6 steps. So we will use that to develop a curriculum. It's a cycle for every new thing that we do. That's a project. So we do general needs assessment, specific needs assessment, create learning objectives, draw a curriculum map, and design the time and the place. And then we deliver the curriculum, and then we do evaluation. And for evaluation frameworks, we have the simple program evaluation framework with Kirkpatrick's framework that is participant-based, learning outcome-based evaluation framework in the way of reaction, learning, behavior, and results. We have the CIPP model, context, input, process, product. We have the logic model, which is resources, activities, deliverables, and effects. And then we have realist evaluation, which is more of a qualitative program evaluation model, where it's adapted to a specific activity sitting in a specific context and may be effective in a specific way. And we'll have examples about that. And the last group of theories that are relevant to faculty development is social theories. So for example, social theories related to identity would be useful in the description where the teacher identity is formed by communities, mentorship, and reflection. Social network theories is a way to use a graphic representation to show how people relate to each other in a group and visualizing nodes and ties and edges, and help describe the flow of information, collaboration, and mentorship in an organization. We also have social learning theory. It describes how people learn in a socio-cultural environment. Sometimes we watch each other, right? Sometimes we emulate desired and rewarded behavior and maybe learn what not to do. It relates to professional identity formation again. And it relates to institutional professional culture and norms. So it's about learning the culture. It's about learning how to be in an environment and how to be in a specific role. O'Sullivan and Irby's framework is a framework that's specifically made for faculty development. It's a schematic about how the people who are doing the education and teaching relate to each other differently in a teaching environment versus in a clinical teaching environment. Maybe I'll just show this picture. So in the center, you see there's a thing called Teaching Commons. So this is like a campus where the students go to their lectures and tutorials and clinical skills, and the faculty members might attend some of the faculty development activities in that space. And then outside of that is the workplace community where clinical work gets done. There's healthcare institutions, but the healthcare institutions has engagement with education spaces. So for example, in Kitchener-Waterloo, where I live and work, the medical school campus opened in 2011. And when it opened, physically, the space is in the middle of the 3 local big healthcare institutions. That structure looks exactly like this conceptually, where the little building that is the medical school is surrounded by healthcare institutions, and there are a number of different connections between those institutions. So when the faculty members come to learn in FD activities, they are learners, and the learners also learn in the campus building. And then when they work together in the clinical environments, then that relationship is different, and that's hopefully where the faculty members would operationalize what they learned in the campus environment. For this part, I'm going to show 3 examples of FD scholarship and see if this inspires anyone, or at least it's very interesting to me how these projects are done. The first one is basically a single center evaluation study of a faculty development intervention. This was done in 2013 in Vanderbilt University in Nashville. This was a series of 4 workshops that are lunchtime short FD interventions, workshop style, with cardiology faculty members. And it's basically described and evaluated through Kern's 6-step model, and then evaluated through Kirkpatrick's framework. So they use pre and post teaching evaluations completed by learners. They showed a difference between before and after in terms of specific teaching skills and overall teaching effectiveness. So for example, some of the things that they evaluated specifically are, did the teacher bring clear learning objectives to their sessions? Did they practice, the best practice in terms of bedside teaching techniques? So overall, there was a small and statistically significant difference between the teaching evaluation before the intervention and after the intervention. Now, almost nobody went to all 4 sessions. Some only went to 1. You can think of a lot of confounding issues with this paper. But I picked it because I liked how they wanted to try to hit a very high level of learner outcome through this series. I felt that was inspiring. If they were to evaluate level 4 outcome, which is better learner outcome from these faculty members who are teaching, then perhaps they could have somehow documented the learner assessment, maybe the cardiology students and the cardiology residents, how they were performing before the faculty members were trained and after the faculty members were trained, and see if there's a difference in their downstream effect as well. This one is rare. This paper explores how does it work through objective observation of a social network. So the paper uses social network analysis as a methodology to look at how social cohesion changed through FD activities. And the FD activity that they studied is something that sounds very much like the Clinician Educator program at McMaster University. This took place at Duke University. They have a program called Academic Medicine Education Institute Fellowship. And this is a year-long fellowship. It's interprofessional. There's synchronous component to it. They meet 10 times a year. And then during those rounds or meetings, there are community of practice type of conversations. And they have 5 different buckets of content that included curriculum design, teaching and learning, assessment, research, and education leadership. Their objective was to refine the educational acumen of clinical educators with significant teaching responsibilities. They also had a required component of direct observation of teaching, as well as a group project. So using the social network analysis in this diagram, a node is a person, and the line between the 2 nodes is an edge. So the edges are defined in the study as a relationship that's strong enough for one person to ask another person for advice on any related task related to teaching or scholarship. To me, that sounds like maybe a colleague or a respected near peer or mentor. So they study the concept of connectedness, which is a concept that measures how frequently the nodes are connected to each other. So on the left side, you have the before graph, where you can see there's a pretty substantial tree of connection on the left side, but then there are a number of smaller networks outside of that. And then after the year-long fellowship, the tree became very dominant. So it went from a 30 people network to a 71 people network. So I imagine ideally, if the program was perfect in doing this, that all of the nodes would be connected into the same network. So any one person in that network would have some connection near or far to another person, which would be the ideal scenario. The authors think what this means is that through this year-long faculty development program, there's a structural change that's measurable and visible to the connectedness of this community. And the theory is that that makes this network more valuable and it works better for information exchange, and indicates that there's institutional organizational level outcome of faculty development programming, which is rare to see in the literature. So as an individual, if you're someone who's looking to participate in a longitudinal program like this, where you meet regularly, you collaborate semi-regularly, and you work together and talk about these topics and learn at the same time, you may expect the outcome of being integrated into a community like this as a node, and you may function as a connection to many others in the network, and you may bring your own current clinical community, for example, into that network, therefore bringing value into that network. And as an institution, for example, if you are a curriculum lead or a department chair or institutional lead, if you're thinking about building a program like this and investing in a program like this, or investing in your own faculty members to participate in the program like this, if one already exists, then you could show that this kind of effort might result in building a community of educators that can easily transmit information, that can collaborate at a level that is above the current siloed structure of different departments. You could reasonably expect significant educational innovation, project deliverables, and or scholarship. Just briefly, the last example, this is a program evaluation study of the McMaster Academic Leadership Program. This was done in 2021 through the Realist Evaluation Framework. It's a study that I had participated alongside of Ann Wang, Teresa Chan, and Ruth Chan. So in this study, we used the Realistic Evaluation Framework to study the context, mechanism, and outcome of that program. So one of the results that we were able to describe through our qualitative interviews and analysis is that, for example, the first connection you can see in this picture, some of the participants work and live in cultures where it's very hierarchical, rigid, and a rigid structure of reporting. So these participants, when they participated in ALP, they were able to establish a trusted network of peers. And then with that support, the outcome is that they were able to experience an increased sense of community and belonging, even though their home department environment may not be promoting that. Okay, coming to the end here. Now what? So we defined FD, we reviewed the trends described in the literature, and we reviewed theoretical grounding of FD. We showed some examples of how it can be done. So now what are we going to do? There are a few things that I think FacDev leads might be wondering about or looking into as they move forward in planning additional activities. If you're a program lead or a FacDev person or someone that's interested in doing some of this work, some of the questions that I'm thinking about is, number one, are we as programmers addressing all the different buckets of faculty development content in a way that is proportional? When we do our needs assessment, are we thinking about, should we cue our participants about their organizational skill development needs or their instructional development needs or their personal development needs? And are we able to maybe join forces with other departments and offices at different levels to be able to be more efficient about it? Related to that, I also wonder, where is the sweet spot? Because in one way, faculty development can be universally applicable. It could be generalizable. Same content could probably be very mildly adapted into different environments. But then there are also places and time where it needs to be more specific to a very specific group of people who have a very specific teaching task to do. So how do we determine when it's time to be efficient and when it's time to actually invest in the specificities? And then to me, the mentorship program is a perennial enigma. It is very difficult, for an institution and department to put forward and support and invest in the mentorship program and formalize it and document it and support it administratively, but then still in some other way keep it organic and keep it natural and keep it autonomous. So I I'm still looking for the answer of that. And now to the education researchers in the room, or those who may feel inspired to do a scholarly project on this topic, there are some understudied topics at this time. First of all, so many new topics in faculty development that has not been studied in terms of effectiveness as a fact of content. How effective are our all of our workshops related to AI? What kind of skill development, what kind of changes are we able to empower people to do? What is the effectiveness of our conversations about equity and inclusivity? How can we make that more inclusive? Effective. And how can we document that? Sustainability is another new topic in education that hasn't been studied well. Another question that I have is, how can we more effectively study the organizational impact of FacDev activities? So similar to the organizational outcome of the network analysis that I showed earlier, we could study a number of different outcomes that are more organizational level. For example, can we tie FD activities to faculty retention? Can we tie it to stronger accreditation review reports? Can we document the evidence of a feedback culture that grows through the FD activities? Can we document increased scholarly output? Although I think that one's been done. And the other thing is thinking about O'Sullivan and Irby's framework between the teaching community and the clinical community. Can we make some connection between what goes on in the teaching community to better clinical community outcomes about the things that truly, truly matter, as a society? Can we tie training activities in the teaching environment to better patient outcome, to less adverse effect, to more staff retention in the healthcare environment? And lastly, studying the outcome of entire programs. We are doing FacDev in family medicine, we're doing FacDev at PGME, we're doing FacDev at regional campus. How are we collaborating together? And where are people actually getting what they need, right? So we're also getting materials from the CMPA, we're getting materials from the OMA, we're getting the materials from me at Ontario College or College of Family Physicians, all these places offering these activities. How can we study what people are actually accessing, what's actually effective? And then from a program point of view, as the entire program, if you look at it in a multidimensional way, are we effective as an institution above, all of these different levels of offerings? So these are some of the things that I think about. Maybe you have some ideas in your context, what might be important or interesting. Maybe there are some scholarship opportunities that is available to you that might be exciting to do. Before I open up the discussion, I'd like to just acknowledge that the Merit Center and Department of Family Medicine and PGME again for supporting me in really significant ways to promote my ability and availability to be able to think about faculty development, to do the work. And I do appreciate the contribution of the Office of CPD, Dr. Ruth Shan in her mentorship and contribution to the slide, and all the good work that they do in creating a calendar of timely and effective accessible event for all of the faculty members, myself included. The QR code is just basically their programs for the year 2026. If you look there, all of the things that I'm excited about for the rest of the spring and summer are listed and open for registration. And these are my references.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It was a great presentation. I think you really, obviously with your experience, highlighted the value of faculty development and how to make it better. No, it's 5:59. So I think we can end it there. Thank you so much again, Catherine, for an amazing presentation and for answering our questions. Really appreciate it. And Allison has also said, thanks for putting together all of this information. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And again, Catherine, for presenting. We will hold our next merit rounds in March. So please keep an eye out for that. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.